Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming in. We will go ahead and get started. First off, I will say we do apologize about kind of the stuffiness in here. We're running the fan. Unfortunately, the AC's down right now, or a little kind of wonky. But let's get on. So, thank you again for coming. My name is Jason Fuji, and I'm the coordinator for the Manzanar At Dusk program, and this is our 25th annual program. Yeah, thank you. So again, thank you for everyone. I hope you enjoyed the pilgrimage, you survived the heat, and in here, and hopefully you take this opportunity to have that discussion and take away even something new through our program and through our small group discussion that we have. A little bit of history of Manzanar At Dusk. It started as Manzanar After Dark and was held around a campfire near Independence in 1997. It was started by two former Manzanar committee members, Jenny Kuwita, who is our MC today, and Ayako Hagihara, with the goal of fostering an environment that promoted intergenerational discussion. The program grew from 25 people to 130 at Legion Hall, and in 2019 we had almost 500 people here. These past views, unfortunately, we did have to switch to virtual. But through that switch to a virtual program, instead of being able to have everyone in person, we were able to actually expand this discussion literally across the globe. We had people in Canada, we had people joining in from Japan. I think we had a few actually from Australia too throughout these past years. Manzanar At Dusk has always asked the question of what can we do now and how can we address these unfortunate recurrent events that are going on. In general, what I think makes Manzanar At Dusk unique from any other program like this is the student involvement. This year we have students from UCLA, UCSD, Cal Poly Pomona, Cal State Long Beach, Cal State Fullerton, and UC Riverside. Nikkei Student Union's in charge of creating a program that focuses around these two important questions. The students' involvement is a way to help develop our future leaders and ours in their own community. And I truly believe their involvement highlights the importance of keeping the stories of all those incarcerated alive and the importance of educating the next generation. These students have actually spent almost an entire year from when we first met during the summer times after our last program ended to today, planning for today's event. We've met via Zoom. We've had a 2-day intensive training at the Manzanar historical site called Katati, which its main focus is educating our Manzanar At Dusk students and the goal of keeping the stories alive. As the times go on, the main focus is keeping it alive and making sure that the stories of all those that were incarcerated get passed on from generation to generation. During this time, the Manzanar Committee works alongside the National Park Services at the Manzanar National Historic Site, where they got to hear from former incarcerees as well as Paiute and Shoshone activists. They have committed many hours and days to this event and have put together an amazing program for you all. And I hope you all take the time and really enjoy what they have put together. I know it'll be amazing. I would now like to introduce our MCs for tonight. Sarah Onda from UCSD, and Marina Aiko Powell from Cal Poly Pomona.
Thank you again for everyone attending Manzanar At Dusk 2023 this evening. The program has run since 1997 and going strong for over 20 years. With this Manzanar At Dusk being the first year back in person since 2019, the Nikkei Student Unions have organized MAD in collaboration with the Manzanar Committee. The organizing schools include CSU Long Beach, CSU Fullerton, Cal Poly Pomona, UCLA, UC San Diego, and UC Riverside. Tonight, we will be reflecting on both stories from the past and the present to shed light on the commonalities between our community then and now. As a disclaimer, certain stories presented today are a mixture of autobiographical stories in which real-world events have been substantially fictionalized. We hope you enjoy the program and take away something valuable from this experience. The first stories we present to you is on Asian hate and laws in the past and present. Here's Eric Chu with a story from the past on Toshio Sato, based off a real-life person, Soichi James Okamoto.
Hello. As mentioned before, we'd like to make a disclaimer that although the story is based on a historical fiction narrative from a perspective of the son, the story is based off of the real events that happened to Soichi James Okamoto in 1944 at Tui Lake. While incarcerated at Tui Lake, Toshio Sato was trying to get by, just as any other kid. He went to school every day, played basketball with his friends when he had free time, and after his games, Toshio would go home every day to the family barracks to eat dinner with his family. One day, when he came home, something was different. His mother was there waiting for him, but his father was nowhere to be seen. Distraught, the pair decided to investigate his father's whereabouts. Toshio's father worked construction and frequently went off-site to work on construction progress outside their campsite. Knowing this, Toshio's mother looked to find one of his father's co-workers to see if they knew where his father's whereabouts. Finally, they found one of his father's co-workers, only to be given tragic news. Toshio's father was shot and killed by the Sentry Gate sentry on the way out of the camp. Fuming, Toshio's mother demanded an investigation. In the end, the sentry was acquitted of all wrongdoing, only to be fined the cost of the unauthorized fired bullet, $1. The court case left the family devastated. Toshio's mother grieved their husband and father's death for months. Before his father's passing, Toshio never questioned their stay within the camps, only seeing their life as temporary stays. Toshio obliged the government, thinking that this is simply what their family must do. But after his father's tragic death, Toshio felt different. He questioned why his family was treated so aggressively, and his father was treated so aggressively while simply doing his job, why his family was forced out of their homes for months, and why they had to live within barracks and barbed fences. Toshio slowly began to unravel the reasonings and truth behind their stay at Tui Lake, slowly being angered by the reasonings. Toshio vowed to tell his father's stories for future generations to hear, so his father's name could be remembered. After several years, Toshio and his brother were finally released from Tui Lake, shipped back to their bare homes with little money. Toshio and his mother hung up a picture of his father on the wall. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Now here's a story set in the present about Jesse Sato and Ryan Park, presented by Ali Yamashita from UCLA.
Hello, quick disclaimer, this story contains fictional characters, but is based on true events. Jesse Sato and Ryan Park grew up in Atlanta. They've been best friends since kindergarten and know practically everything about each other. Jessie is the granddaughter of Toshio Sato, making her a yonsei, a fourth-generation Japanese American. She's very proactive in community service and is a part of various initiatives in her area. Ryan is the son of an immigrant single mother from South Korea, making him a second-generation Korean American. His mother works hard at a local spa every day and has high hopes of putting her sons through college. The year is 2021 now, and Jesse and Ryan are both attending Emory University. Jesse walks into East Asian Languages and Linguistics class expecting to see Ryan in the 5th row where they sit together every week. He's not there though, so she checks her phone to see if he's texted. She quickly types, "Where are you?" and then sits through the lecture alone, checking her phone every 5 minutes. When the lecture ends, she calls Ryan, just to get no response. Feeling a bit anxious at this point, she walks back to her dorm room after class. But before she sits down to start her homework, she decides to check the news. 8 killed in a shooting at a spa shop in Atlanta. Jessie immediately thinks of Ryan's mom and her heart stops for a second. She tries to brush off her anxiety but can't help but think about how she hasn't been able to reach Ryan all day. After what feels like an eternity, she receives a phone call from him a couple hours later. He talks quietly and steadily. "Jessie, I lost my mom today. She was shot while she was working." Jessie's heart drops to her stomach. She's speechless. She gathers herself just enough to ask, "Are you okay?" Ryan hesitates. "I'm not sure." Not knowing what else to say, he says, "I need some time to process. I just wanted to let you know myself." And he ends the call. Jessie immediately texts him to let him know that she's there for him when he's ready. Her mind is in a million places at once. Ryan and his brother are going to be on their own. How is Ryan, a full-time student, going to support himself and his younger brother? Jessie remembers Ryan's mother talking about the lack of Asian representation in the Atlanta area, and that Ryan and his brother were the only connections she had to the American community. His mom was the only connection he had to his Korean heritage. Jessie also takes a moment to reflect on the hate crime that her grandfather, Toshio, experienced at the incarceration camps. While a part of her thought that racially motivated violence like this only happened in the past, she was well aware of the rise of Asian hate crimes. However, this didn't cushion the agonizing shock of something like this happening to someone so close to her in her life. She spends the rest of the night pondering the repetitiveness of history and the unimaginable transformation of her best friend's life. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. The second set of stories are about forced removal seen in history. Here's Hail Chuba with the story of Matsu Hama.
Hello, so this is a true story. Mutsu Homa was born in Tono Iwate-ken, Japan on June 1911 and followed her father to the States when she was 18 years old. She graduated from USC School of Music, where she met her husband, Dr. Kyushiro Homa, who was a dentist. They settled in Sawtelle, Los Angeles with their 3 children. At the time, Sawtelle was a mixed neighborhood, but the Homa family stood out because of the majority of Japanese population were gardeners. Life was peaceful until the war started. Neighbors and random people would walk into her house and take whatever they wanted, even the food Mutsu cooked. FBI agents spied on them as passerbyers and even as her husband's patients. Things then escalated for Mutsu following the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Her family was forcibly put into makeshift horse barracks at the Santa Anita racetracks. The entire floor and room were covered in manure, and old hay was used as a mattress. Basic resources like milk were not available, so Mutsu had to feed her 2 babies with powdered milk. Temperatures went as high as 104, and as a result, many people suffered from heat stroke. Mutsu, her mother, father, and 2 brothers were separated from one another at different camps throughout the US. They sent letters to each other, but censorship was very common. It was very difficult to understand the entire message of each letter. As Mutsu arrived at Amachi incarceration camp in Colorado, a soldier stopped her and asked these exact words: Are you a human being? Mutsu replied, "Yes, don't you think so?" The soldier came back saying, "You look like a human being, but when I came from South Carolina, they said that Jap means not a human being. They're like a gorilla, so if we want to, we can kill them." That's what I learned when I came out. And then I look up and down every person who walks in here, like a human being, and all you people wear just beautiful clothes. The soldier was shocked to see that the stereotypes he has been hearing about the Japanese people were all false. The most heartbreaking moment for Mutsu was the death of her husband. Because of the lack of resources and harsh temperatures in Amachi, Mutsu was left by herself to take care of her 3 children. Mutsu faced several challenges, but she kept persevering through it all. She was released from Amachi a year later and made the decision to settle down in Seattle. Mutsu finishes her story by giving a message to her husband. "Thank you. You promised to make me happy. Now I'm happy now. So anytime you want me, please call. Thank you."
Thank you, Hale. Now, here's a story in the present about Lisa Doi, presented by Nicole Tsuyuki from UC San Diego.
This is a biographical piece based off of an interview we conducted with a representative from Solidarity, Lisa Joy. So, it hasn't even been a century since the mass incarceration of hundreds of thousands of Japanese and Japanese American people during World War II. Lisa Joy's family were part of those incarcerated and witnessed firsthand the inhumane treatment at the incarceration camps. Because of this, she has made it her mission through her work for the organization Sudo for Solidarity to prevent this kind of tragedy from happening again. Sudo for Solidarity is an organization that was founded in 2019 in response to the family and child detention centers in Texas and Oklahoma. It is built upon the core values of solidarity and intergenerational community building. To Lisa Joy, this means understanding that solidarity helps the Japanese American community heal and allows for showing in deeper solidarity with communities targeted by state violence and incarceration. Acknowledging this, the shared experience of marginalized communities, including the Japanese American community, is important to effectively address the systemic issues in the United States immigration policies. Like Japanese American concentration camps of the past, these detention centers forcibly separate families and communities, inflicting irreparable harm on those targeted by ICE policies. It is clear that the history is repeating itself again, just as incarcerations of World War II targeted those of Japanese descent. The immigration detainment of camps at the U.S.-Mexico border to continue to racial and dehumanize people based off their ethnicity. Research from the American Civil Liberties Union shows that the vast majority of those of individuals in ICE detention centers are people of color, including many from the Black and brown communities who are disproportionately impacted by systemic racism and discrimination. Additionally, the inhumane living conditions such as inadequate restroom facilities echo the poor living conditions of internees in Japanese internment camps that they lived through. Despite this, the challenges of marginalized communities in the U.S. continue to face. Lisa Joy envisions hope for a more just and equitable world. She states, "We hope for a future where people are safe and have the resources to meet their needs. We hope for a future where the U.S. as a nation reckons with our history and present of radical violence and racial violence, really heals and builds a future that redresses these harms. We hope for a future where communities are kept whole and there is not an us, them, or good, bad people who need to be locked up," Joy emphasized. She continued, "We are living in a future that was unimaginable 1 to 7 generations before us, and we are hopeful for the kind of world that will be created 1 to 2 generations after us." Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. The last set of stories we have for today are about solidarity efforts across communities in the past and present. Here is Kobe Kozai to tell our first story about the solidarity efforts in the past with the Quakers.
In 1917, the Quakers founded the American Friends Service Committee, or the AFC, originally to provide alternatives to military service for the conscientious objectors during World War I. Soon after, in the mid-1920s, the AFSC widened their focus to a number of issues, including improving race relations, widening focus to a number of issues, including improving race relations. The AFSC created the interracial section in 1924, which attempted to address racial issues in a global context. In the US, the interracial section focused primarily on the Black community and the Japanese community. The latter focused on supporting the studies of 3 Japanese students at US colleges for an academic year. Hoping that the resulting contacts between white and Japanese students would lead to improved understanding and friendship. However, due to financial problems and an ambitious range of projects, the AFSC ended the Japanese student program in the late 1920s, not long before deciding to close the interracial section as well. This did not mean the end of AFSC's interest in the interracial activism. However, when Executive Order 9066 was signed in 1942, the AFSC quickly began searching for ways to help the Japanese American community. Before the forced removal began, they helped Japanese American college students transfer to other universities away from the West Coast, and some personally helped and looked after the Japanese Americans' homes and properties. An important person in the relocation of Japanese American college students was Clarence Pickett, who was the executive director of the AFSC then. Personally asked by Milton Eisenhower, the younger brother of Dwight Eisenhower, whether the AFSC would help lead the transfer of Japanese American students attending West Coast universities to island colleges. Pickett said that the more one sees the possibilities of the student relocations, the more one is inclined to feel that this may be one of the chief means of preventing the internment camp relocation from becoming a catastrophe in our national life. And few undertakings by the AFSC have ever been more completely satisfactory. The AFSC made the National Japanese American Student Relocation Council, or the NJASRC, and immediately started raising funds for scholarships. The NJASRC helped find appropriate colleges for Japanese American students, laid groundwork before the students enrolled, and helped gain clearance from government agencies so the students could leave camp. In all, over 3,500 Japanese American students received aid from the NJASRC. Once the forced removal began, the AFSC maintained personal contact with those in camp, visiting them to assess their situation, spoke publicly about the situation, and provided food and other goods, such as clothing and recreational materials. Outside of the camps, the AFSC helped fill out applications for employment and maintained hostels in major cities across the U.S. for temporary housing for those that got a job, which was a requirement for leaving the camps. Decades later, in 1980, several Nisei founded the Nisei Student Relocation Commemorative Fund in New England as an expression of gratitude to the AFSC and NJASRC, which seeks to help students of racial minority pursue higher education and to foster inter-ethnic relations. Thank you.
Thank you, Kobe.
Lastly, here's Kazu Asakawa from CSU Long Beach with their story of solidarity efforts with the Black community.
Before we begin, can we please give another round of applause for all the speakers that went up so far? In the wake of the 9/11 attacks, Muslim Americans found themselves facing increased discrimination and hostility. As one Muslim American, Ibu Patel, noted, for many of us, it was a time of fear and uncertainty. We wondered what our place in America would be. But amid this atmosphere of fear and division, Japanese Americans who had themselves faced discrimination during World War II stepped up to show solidarity with their Muslim neighbors. As noted in Densho, a Japanese American historical organization, many Japanese Americans saw parallels between the treatment of Muslim Americans after 9/11 and their own experience during World War II. A quote by Joe Yasutake has a quote that also connects these two events. Sometimes people ask, well, why don't you just forget about this? That was 60 years ago. Why not press on? Well, because it's very relevant right now, especially right now. All I can do is kind of point out these things and hope that maybe it'll catch on in the audience, or perhaps I might be talking to, and it may have some kind of an effect at some point if we do it enough times. One of the groups that played a key role in this solidarity was the American Friends Service Committee, or the AFSC, a Quaker organization known for its commitment to social justice. During World War II, the AFSC had worked to support Japanese Americans who were forcibly removed from their homes and placed in their internment camps. Decades later, the AFSC continued to stand in solidarity with marginalized communities. In response to the Muslim ban, the organization issued a statement declaring, "We stand with Muslim communities across the US and around the world who are being targeted and vilified." We know from our own history that these kinds of policies lead to fear, hate, and violence. This commitment to solidarity was not limited to the Muslim community. As Cultural News reports, in 2015, Japanese American Quakers joined with African Americans activists in protesting the auction of an art created by Japanese Americans who were held in internment camps during World War II. The protesters argued that the auction was a reminder of the ongoing legacy of racism and injustice in the US. These stories of solidarity remind us that the struggles of marginalized communities are interconnected. As AFSC Program Director Lucy Duncan noted, we have a shared history of injustice and oppression, but also a shared legacy of resistance and resilience. This support from the Quakers was not lost on the Japanese American community. In a letter written by a former attorney, she expressed her gratitude for the Quaker aid. I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to the American Friends Service Committee. The kindness of the Quakers has touched us deeply. But this solidarity did not end there. As the Black Lives Matter movement gained momentum in recent years, Japanese Americans once again found themselves standing in solidarity with the Black community. In a powerful article on Densho, scholar Brian Masaru Hayashi notes, many Japanese Americans found in the Black Power movement a language and a framework to articulate their own experiences and to envision a more just and equitable society. The connection between Japanese Americans and the Black community can be seen in the artwork created by Japanese Americans in the internment camps. As noted in Cultural News, in the midst of the turmoil and loss, a group of Japanese Americans quietly made drawings and paintings inspired by the African American struggle for civil rights. And the Quaker legacy of standing in solidarity with marginalized communities lives on today. In a recent article about Buffalo Quakers, it was noted that Quakers continue to stand in solidarity with movements for racial justice, recognizing that the fight for justice is ongoing and multifaceted. As we continue to fight for justice and equality, we can look to the example set by the Quakers in the Japanese American community. As former internee Yudi Kochiyama said, we are all part of one another. Through solidarity and compassion, we can work towards a better world for all. Today, the need for solidarity across communities remains just as urgent. As racism and xenophobia continue to threaten the safety and well-being of marginalized communities, we can look to the examples of Japanese American Quaker solidarity to inspire us to work for a more just and inclusive world. As Ibu Patel said, in times of crisis, we have a choice to make. We can choose to be divided by hate and fear, or we can choose to come together in solidarity. Thank you.
We hope the stories we shared and shed visibility on the themes of the past and present, and hope you were able to learn something new.
Thank you all for listening, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the program today.
It's part of our Manzanar At Dusk program that we do have an open mic portion. So we just ask that if there's anything that just kind of sparks if there's something that you learned, some story that you heard either while you were at the pilgrimage, during your small group discussions, any idea, feel free to please come up. I would like to say though, please do try to keep it on the shorter side. We would like to give everyone an opportunity to share. But yeah, please feel free. If you would like to speak, we will have a line coming up. So it's just not going to be just kind of who gets to the microphone first, but we open everyone's conversation. We'd love to hear just what you took away from just this entire day. So without further ado, I'm going to bring back the MCs to help run the open mic. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm with Joe Taiko. We performed today, so yeah. Keep it short, I guess. I think the one thing Mike talked about was the power and like sharing stories, and really internalizing what your parents or their parents have gone through, and really kind of making that story known. It's more about kind of connecting with your identity, and not running away from those situations, but being okay with being uncomfortable. So I guess from this, what I'd like to go away was, I encourage everybody to talk to their parents about, even if you're not Japanese American, if you come from whatever background, right? Talk to your parents, have those uncomfortable conversations. I know as Asian Americans, it's very hard to have those conversations sometimes. But I really encourage everyone to find their stories, the stories of their parents, the stories of their grandparents, because you'll learn a lot. And I think that's something that I found a really big passion about coming to college. So, thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Hallie. I'm with UC Berkeley's NSU, so thank you so much for having us. I know we're not really part of SoCal NSU, so just want to say thank you so much for having us. And I also just wanted to say thank you to all of the incarcerees and the children of incarcerees and the nieces and nephews of incarcerees who spoke to us. There's a lot of anxiety, I think, with the younger generation about how you guys view us, about what we can do to continue on sharing these stories, and I think it's really, really meaningful to get your stories and your feedback and just to have your encouragement. So I just want to say thank you so much for having faith in us, to the older generation who talked to us today.
Third generation Japanese American, so both of my parents' families were incarcerated. My father's family in Minidoka, and my mother's family from Santa Fe, New Mexico was interned at Topaz. And I jumped in late in our small group, and I just want to say I'm really inspired by all the young people that are here today, because us old people are kind of tired, we don't have that much energy. We need you folks to be engaged in these conversations and the learning. I didn't get to mention the small group. There was references to it today in some of the speeches, but last week I saw a study, and it was out of Business Week, I think, that said that 1 out of every 4 U.S. Americans think that China is the enemy right now. Very similar to what happened in 1942 to my families, when Japanese Americans were targeted as the enemy, right? And we all have heard and shared some of the stories we listened to about the anti-Asian violence sweeping across the country. How many people are aware of the rhetoric around the ban of the TikTok app? Everybody heard about that, right? Did you see the president of TikTok? He's not even from China. And they were accusing him of being a mouthpiece for the Communist Party of China. And he's a Singaporean. It's like these racist people in this country can't even make a distinction between different Asian countries. We're all Chinese in this room right now. Just like in 1942, all Asian people were Japanese. So we're only 1 year away from a major election in 2024, and I hope that everybody can take what they learned this weekend back and do something so we don't let the wrong people take power in 2024.
My name is Kazu. I'm from CSU Long Beach. And one of the questions that stuck out to me during the group discussion was the importance of sharing intergenerational and inter-community stories. And so one of my group discussion participants actually worked in the same hometown. And we didn't even know about it until today. And she was sharing her story about the typical Asian story of oh, my mom would work so hard to make these mentos for me. And she would make shapes and she would kind of style it so that, her kid would have a good lunch. And when she would bring it to school, all the kids would be like, oh, what is that food? It looks gross, it doesn't smell good. And I'm sure we've all heard these stories before about, kids who don't want to have these Asian lunches packed because the kids will make fun of them. And I'm fortunate enough, even though we're from the same hometown, we're from different schools, and I was fortunate enough to not have these comments said about the stuff that I brought, because I was lucky enough to have a group of Asian friends early on, so that we kind of grew up together, and so we didn't have these stories of discrimination against each other. And so I wanted to bring up the importance of just talking with your friends, talking with your peers that are of similar age, because just through that one story, I realized that we're all very unique, we're all very different, even though we grew up the same way, we grew up the same, we're all the same age, we all have different stories to tell. And so I encourage you guys, everyone here, to speak with your friends, speak with whoever you can that are similar age, because they might have a completely different story from you that you would never even thought of. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Kayla. I'm from UCLA's NSU. And I just wanted to share, thank you so much to everyone who came out today. And even if your family was not incarcerated, the fact that you're here and learning about these stories is so important when we talk about solidarity today. So as a daughter of a former incarcerated, just thank you so much, because these stories are so important. So each of you being here today is like moving history forward and moving the future forward. So thank you for being here.
Hello. I'm usually good at public speaking, but I feel like I'm a little nervous because I'm around people that mean a lot to me. So I just wanted to thank you all for being here and attending. I'm from Cal State Long Beach, NSU, by the way. And I participated in the Manzanar At Dusk program, and I just wanted to give everyone from the Katati program like a shout out, and thank you all for making my experience so special, and thank all of the younger Nikkeis and anyone who is in the younger generation that is here today. I'm really excited for us to kind of grow old together and become the next leaders of the next generation. And I'm so glad that you all have inspired me to, pursue being a leader, and we're all going to be the leaders of the community someday. And I wanted to touch again on something that our speaker earlier before Sarah said, is that, being here is an act of radical self-love. So I hope you, love being here and love being, JA or being a part of this Manzanar Pilgrimage. So yeah, thank you.
Hello, I'm Toby from Cal Poly NSU. One thing that stuck out to me a lot from our discussion was sort of a question that I asked my group when we ran out of questions, was in the past, a lot of Issei and very Japanese Americans after the war became very prideful and did not want to share their stories. They didn't want to relive the pain, and they didn't want to continue to pass on the stories. They would rather bury it in the past and leave it in the past. And the question I asked was, if you knew that your family went through this sort of pain, would you be able to advocate for your family and be able to tell their story knowing that it's not the story that they want you to tell for them? Through this conversation, we realized that we should really stick to our principles, and if the sort of issue that we're talking about is something that's very strong and something that we believe in very strongly, we shouldn't be afraid to think that it's wrong to create something for the better of the community and for the better of possibly your future family or your kids or anybody that you really care about, because in the end it comes together all together, and we're all a big community, and anything that can help us as a whole can really help the world itself. So thank you.
Hi there, my name is Henry Hogan. I'm a community organizer in Little Tokyo. This is my first pilgrimage, and it's just been absolutely wonderful to be here. I'm also a spirit runner with Mona Shida over here, survivor of concentration camps, giving you a round of applause. And if it's all right, I'd like to read a little poem that I wrote today, reflecting on my experience running and general struggle for us in Little Tokyo. And the poem is called, "Where's the Border Between Most said we're running to Manzanar, but I can't remember when we left. They say the camp is down the road, so why is that sheriff driving past? I heard they let us into America now, but every time I go to Little Tokyo, I walk past the Men's County Jail and the HQ of the LAPD. Guess I'm on the other side of the barbed wire now. Guess we call that the land of the free. But even then, I swear, it seems like the barbed wire gets nearer and nearer every year. There's a cage in the heart of J-Town now. Too many poor folks in Torrey Union Plaza, they say. So now the plaza can't be used by anybody. Some big shot said he'd chain himself to any fence they put up in our community. Guess he was too busy chaining himself to the Democratic Party. I remember now, someone said something about how we have to unite and vote out fascism, but I didn't see Biden stop the murder of Tortuguita down south in Cop City. Must be that FDR, now those 6'6" kind of anti-fascism. That's why families are still in cages on the border, don't you see? Where's the border between America and Manzanar? That barbed wire won't stop creeping on me. I saw it choke out Sonny and Shorty on the corner of the street. No, I don't think I prefer this place called America. But I hear a whisper over there. I think it's Yuri. She says there's a place better than America. And we'll run into Manzanar so we can finally leave. There are other nations buried in the sands there. And we'll be able to find them back home fighting the LAPD. There ain't no border between America and Manzanar. Or if there is, it's the chains on which I bleed. I'm running out of America. I'm running against America. And my arms are open if you want to run with me. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Derek. I'm a first year from Cal Poly Promoters NSU. I just wanted to come up here and talk about, continue on the talk about how important it is to share stories, because I think that's really, really important. And one part of my group's conversation, one part of my group's conversation that I was really interesting to talk about was we started talking about how history is written in textbooks and passed on, and how the stories are passed on from person to person, by communication, school textbooks, whatever it may be. But I think one of the really important things, besides just reaching out to different people and hearing about their stories, is how we convey those stories further, because there's a lot of holes that can be created in the story. When it's told, from whether details are spared in the original explanation, whether memory fails the person that passes on the story, whether bias changes the story. And I think that keeping all of these in mind is really important when we are hearing about a story, learning all of the details, and passing on the meaning of all of these stories. And so it's just important to keep that in mind.
I think in regards to moving forward, one of the greatest things that we can take away from this event is taking the lessons that we learned and applying it to today's political climate and present-day society. One example of that being voting as a form of action. I think one of the speakers today that I found really admirable was I don't remember her name, but she was the lady that talked about the fight that African Americans go through for reparations. I think because we are a community that once was especially highly discriminated at one point, and we did receive a form of reparations in return, I think this is a great opportunity to kind of show our support and fight for a similar cause. And also it's another way to kind of keep our history alive for future generations to come. And I also want to say, I want to add that I think it's also really refreshing seeing our community kind of collaborate and support other minorities, because at the end of the day, I think for future reference, it will definitely benefit our community as a whole. And I think it's really refreshing and also rare sometimes to see our Japanese American community kind of reach out and show support and collaborate with minorities such as the African American community. So yeah, I think that was one of the main points that I learned from today. Thank you.
I'm from the UC Berkeley NSU. First of all, I just want to start off by saying thank you so much to everyone who made this event happen. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to attend something as large as this Manzanar Pilgrimage, and I've had an outstanding experience so far, and I will continue to do so tonight as well. Something that I wanted to bring up, and something that made me really interested by this whole experience, was the opportunity for cross-cultural collaboration. Coming from Berkeley, we have like an 8-hour drive down here, And the whole time we were thinking, we're like, what are the other NSUs going to be like? Like, are we going to click well? Like how is it actually going to interact with each other? And I will say, within our small group, even though it was only like a 30 or 40 minute long conversation, I would say like most members of our group like instantly clicked. And I know afterwards we all kind of huddled around and like shared Instagrams and got to know each other. And I'm sure that's something that will happen again tonight at the DS campgrounds. And honestly, what this really points out to me is the importance of cross-cultural collaboration. As I have seen here, that it's not just Japanese Americans, but also people from other backgrounds, undergraduates, but also alumni from college who didn't get a chance to attend because of COVID. And I think to see these people from all these different backgrounds, different cultures, different ages, all over the state, and having us all mesh so well and be able to connect so well is really a testament to, I think, our shared cultural alliance and the powerful unity that Asians can have together and just minority culture as a whole. And what I really realized from a lot of this Manzanar discussion is that a lot of the times we tend to look at the past. And it is important to remember the history and all the important events and connections that led us to actually come here. But I think something that's really important to be talked about is also the future. It's really important to understand the possibilities and just the sheer capabilities that we have as a community. And knowing how well that we work together just in something as simple as a small discussion group really makes me happy and proud to kind of think of the possibilities for the future and of the different collaborations and goals of things like justice that we can really achieve together.
I'm from UCLA's NSU. And in our discussion, when we were talking about takeaways, I first thought of just the feeling of being together in community. I think talking with my small group, we really formed a bond, even though some of us knew each other already. I think just telling our family histories, telling our current histories, telling our future hopes for the world really just made me feel more connected. And I think that feeling is something I want to bring back with me to NSU, to my family, to my communities. And that feeling is more so a recognition of the love and strength that our community can have. And I think that really represents that when we're motivated, when we're not motivated by fear and anger, when we're motivated by love and empathy is when we can create the most change. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is Garrett. I'm from UCR, NSU. I just wanted to say, it's really cool that you guys are out here. Thanks for being here. And I just want to say that you guys being here is that you guys are ready and willing to learn about J history. I think that's a really amazing thing. I think one thing that I learned or found is that the history of incarceration of our those in the past isn't really taught, or I don't really learn about it by actually going to Manzanar with the family on trips to Mammoth. And I think you guys being here is really cool because it's our responsibility as a future generation to share that with other generations. So I think thank you guys for being here. That's about it. Thank you.
One or two more people, so feel free to make your way on through it. Thank you.
Wow. Hi, I'm Stefan. I'm from the UC Berkeley NSC chapter as well. I just want to say that this is such a beautiful event. I'm actually not even Japanese, but I just think that seeing how excited everyone was to be so prideful of their culture, and I think nowadays in these new generations, many of our friends can tend to kind of be afraid of exposing our cultures and what our ancestors went through. But I think it's really cool to just see how everyone came out here and making your ancestors proud by continue to talk about what they went through, and to also just share what they kind of fought for. So yeah.
I shared in my group that I was born and raised in Argentina. So I moved here 2 years ago, and one thing that I shared was that I was always embarrassed to be Asian. Oh wait, I was the only Asian girl in mutual friends. So coming here, thanks to my group that made me feel really comfortable and confident to talk about, and share so many stories. That was really encouraging me to actually change my mind. And honestly, I also want to say thank you for this opportunity that it actually made me have another point of view of what history was and what history will be. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mo Nishida. I am here as one of the spirit runners of Little Tokyo to Manzanar. This is our 31st year. I come out of the University of the Streets of Chinatown. That's not called for educational things. I want to say that to be here with all of you is probably at least once a year is really positive. That coming together with a dream of the future, looking for the truth, looking for who we are, what our contribution to the making of America and the world will be. I think that's heavy duty stuff. And I think that's worthy of us as Asian Pacific peoples on this turtle island. The thing that I think you should all be aware of, though, because there's some bullshit going on, right? Everything, we get all the good word, right, about how everything is so cool, and we're trying so hard. But I didn't hear a goddamn word about the pollution contradiction going on in the world today. Do you know that there's elements that could destroy human society? That the great natural experiment of us two-leggeds coming together like this is a waste of fucking time, right? Oh, that temperature's got to go up another 2 or 3 degrees, and it's over, Jack. Yeah? So what good is all this good feelings? I'll tell you what it's good for. It's good for us to feel like all the things we've been feeling are for a purpose, right? A purpose is for us to get off our ass and take care of business and take over the world, right? It's only 1%, a lousy ass 1% that runs the whole show, that can end this whole experiment for us. So there's the rest of us, right? And we're part of that 99%. So what gives? We're going to give this lousy minority, right, 1%, the power to flush us all down the toilet. Are you going for that? I hope not, man. Malcolm told us a long time ago, right, the futility of turning the other cheek. You don't have to turn the other cheek. You just stand up and stare the sucker down. You don't have to take on being put down. You don't have to be told that you're nothing. Like that one young lady said, she was the only one. I know that feeling too. Right after the war, I was the only one. So what I did was I formed allies with the Chicano sisters and brothers on the grammar school campus I was at. And we got it to the point where I couldn't get picked on by myself. They would have to take on a whole bunch of us. So, same thing, same principle. All of us here are You're charming, you're vivacious, you're beautiful, you got all this good energy. And you got a purpose in life, man. Make this world a better place to live in. Right? What is this bullshit that you can sit there and watch television and see people suffer? They ain't got no water, they ain't got no heat, they ain't got no wood, they ain't got no food. Why is that? Because this country, it's called U.S. imperialism. It's got its tentacles spread all over the world and it's sucking the blood off of all the people in the world. We got more soul than that, sisters and brothers. I gotta tell you, the bottom of my heart, I know we got more soul than that. I'm going to share with you a song. It comes from our run. And it's a simple song. It's called This Red Road is a Long One. It starts off facing the west. And we go sing it 4 verses, or 6 verses, and it's over. But it's about life. この道は長いです。この道は長いです。足伸ばして一歩一歩遠いところにも歩ける。この道は長いです。この道は長いです。心を開いて歩きましょう。Facing north。この道は長いです。この道は長いです。足伸ばして一歩一歩遠いところにも歩ける。この道は長いです。この道は長いです。お手手つないで歩きましょう。Facing east。この道は長いです。この道は長いです。足伸ばして一歩一歩遠いところにも歩ける。この道は長いです。この道は長いです。心を開いて歩きましょう。Facing north。この道は長いです。この道は長いです。足伸ばしてお手手つないで歩きましょう。Facing up。This red road is a long one. This red road is a long one. Take each step. One by one, even far places can be reached in this way. This red road is a long one. This red road is a long one. Come pick up your spirits and walk it with me. Facing Mother Earth. This red road is a long one. This red road is a long one. Take each step, one by one, even far places can be reached in this way. This red road is a long one. This red road is a long one. Come take my hand and walk it with me. Come on, sisters and brothers. The journey ahead is exciting as hell because the future of this system is in your hand. All power to the people.
My name is Matt. I'm a 4th year at UCLA. First, I just wanted to shout out to my group. I really appreciated all their input, despite how hot it was today and the participation. And I really didn't know what I was going to do going into it, but I'm glad that it went well. Also, thank you to everyone coming here today, and we'll see you guys at the after party at Campground 140. We're gonna have a fun time after this, and have a good night. Thank you.
Okay, so now that concludes our open mic session. Thank you to those of you that came up here and shared something with us today. We appreciate everyone for being here again, and hope you guys learned something and took something from this. Passing it back to Jason as he'll wrap everything back up. So thank you.
So thank you. Can we get another hand for our MC Sarah Honey? I'm just here to kind of wrap it up. We have a few other thank yous. First, thank you for everyone for attending. I know it's been a very long day for you all through the hot sun, through this gym, through the small group discussions, and the late night. So thank you again for everyone for attending, giving up your time, and hopefully taking away something new. The next is I would like to thank Lone Pine High School and Lone Pine Unified School District for letting us use this facility. And thank you to all of our small group discussion leaders and volunteers. These are all different college students from the different schools around the Southern California area. And they volunteered their time to lead these groups tonight, and I know they did a great job. And not only that, I heard we had students coming from not just Southern California area, but also Northern California and Boston, so welcome everyone. And lastly, as far as my thank yous is, finally, we'd like to thank and acknowledge a group of students that have been working countless hours these past months to put together this program. So if I do call out your name, please raise your hand. From UCLA, Ali Yamashita and Yuiko Tahana. From UCSD, Sarah Ando and Nicole Tsuyuki. From Cal Poly Pomona, Marina Aiko Powell and Kobe Kozai. From Cal State Long Beach, Aaron Hayashida and Kazu Asakawa. From Cal State Fullerton, Nao Mayashiro, Eric Chu and Drew Yamamura. And from UC Riverside, Kel Chiba and Emily Sadashina. And to finally close this out, truly without all their hard work, Manzanar At Dusk wouldn't exist. It's a program that is really run by the college students, by our future leaders. It truly shows that these students are the future and that they have the power to change the world for the better, even from this program and moving on into their own community. So thank you again, everyone. Lastly, this does conclude our 2023 first time back after 2 years of virtual Manzanar At Dusk program. Thank you everyone again for attending. Have a great night. Please get back safely. And we all hope to see you next year. And I don't know what's going to be said here, but a few things as far as logistics. We would like, if you have a chair or if students can you please help, just to stack them up against this wall. And as far as the students, please help as far as with the AV equipment so we can get this cleaned up. And please, everyone, be on the lookout. If you see trash, please pick it up and toss it away. We do have the water jugs, so please fill up. Get back safely. Thank you again.